Hello, I am David.
And I'm Brienne.
And we are back. At long last, we have returned. I think this is our 12th video.
Yeah.
It has taken us 8 months.
Yeah.
We have spanned over 2 different channels. Mm-hmm. And we have covered a variety of different formats when it comes to these videos. Mm-hmm. We started out just watching them in my living room.
Yes.
And we were just watching them and then talking about them for about like 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. And then we started doing a little bit longer videos where we were reacting to the actual movie.
Yeah.
But we stopped doing those because people got onto us for how much we talked in the movie. Yeah. So we're like, you know what? We'll just go back to talking about it afterwards so you can't get onto us about that. And then we finally moved in here where we, started like filming with like some fancy lights.
Yeah.
And then we got some lights back here. And so we've gotten a lot more professional with this.
Yeah, we got to see the evolution as time went on.
Yeah, so this whole playlist has spanned the whole thing.
Yeah.
But at long last, we have reached Avengers Endgame for the second time. I don't even know what I'm going to name this video yet because all the other videos have been like watching this for the first time.
Yeah.
But if you haven't watched any of these videos yet, basically what happened is this is Brienne, and she had never seen any of the Marvel movies. And so me, being the delightful person I am, I decided to show her Avengers Endgame as her first ever Marvel movie. A lot of people didn't like that. I didn't really care. Because I'm not the biggest Marvel fan, but I've seen them, and I was like, you know what? I don't want to waste this opportunity. I think it would be awesome to just introduce somebody to a series at the very end. And she really had no idea what was going on.
Oh, yeah. No, not anything whatsoever. Yeah.
But we went back, and 8 months ago, we started watching through them. It's been a slow burn because, she's gone off to college. We've watched other movies and stuff because we didn't want to have to make a video for every single movie we watched. So we've done a bunch of other different stuff. But finally, we have reached Endgame once again.
Yeah.
And so now you have seen the movie with context.
Yeah.
And my question for you is, what did you think about it?
Yeah. Well, going into it, I remembered that I was very confused the first time. And let me say, after watching all of the movies, literally everything made sense. And I was like, okay, this movie's a lot better than what I remember. Because I think I was kind of influenced because I had no idea what was going on. I was like, I don't see why people like this movie so much. I'm so confused. But now that I understand, it's a really good movie. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've got to be honest with you. Having just rewatched these movies with you... Sorry, I just really wanted the hammer to be in the video, so I just wanted to bring it in for a second and put it back out. But, yeah, rewatching these movies, having just gone through them again, back to back, I got to say, I enjoyed this movie more than I ever have before.
Yeah.
I've seen this movie multiple times now. I saw it 3 times in theaters, I think. Once, I went by myself. And then I went and talked to my cousin about it because she was in the hospital at the time. And so I just went there and talked with her about it. Without spoilers, of course. And then, when she got out of the hospital, we went and saw it again. And then I'm pretty sure I took my parents to go see it. So I saw it 3 times in theaters. Then whenever it was released on DVD, I watched it again. And then I watched it again with you whenever we started it. And then, so this was I think my 6th time watching this movie.
Yeah.
What do you think about it? It's a 3-hour movie. 3-hour movie. That means I have almost spent an entire day watching this one movie. But I've got to say, this was my most enjoyable experience watching it.
Yeah.
And whenever we finally reached that final fight, I was invested. I was watching it, and the music was just hitting me at all the right points and stuff. And I think it was nice because I was getting to experience it with you.
Yeah. And
the first time we watched it, it was enjoyable for a totally different reason because I just got to see how confused you were by everything. Yeah. You were just like, I don't get it. All of a sudden these portals open up and you're like, who the heck are these people?
Yeah.
You do none of that stuff.
Because I didn't even know characters. Because I remember at the beginning of it, we watched it on DVD at that time, so we had the slip cover that was over the hard DVD, and you were asking me all the characters, and I was like, I know Iron Man, I know Captain America, and that's it.
Yes.
So even whenever all the characters were coming out of those portals the first time, I was like, I don't know who any of these people are, but it seems like a big deal. Didn't know where the portals were. Yeah, didn't know who they were, but yeah, continue.
Yeah. No, but this time it was actually enjoyable for a whole different reason because you actually knew what was going on.
Yeah.
And so you were able to be like, oh, I get it now. And you actually seemed like you remembered the scenes.
Yeah, I did.
Fairly well.
Surprisingly.
But you were getting to experience them in a whole new context and stuff. And I was like, oh, it was actually really fun for me.
Yeah.
Because then it's like both ways I got to enjoy the movie more. Mm-hmm. The first time, it's because I got to be like, haha, I know something you don't. And I just got to see what it was like watching it without context.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we take that for granted. You know, you can watch a movie and you're like, yeah, I get all of this. But if you just take a random person in there, they're like, I don't know what's going on. Mm-hmm. But the second time, it was like, you finally knew. And so we got to share in that. And all of a sudden, you got to understand why certain moments were like so exciting for me. And yeah, so I thought it was really cool. But let's start with, I'm just going to ask you a series of questions. Because, you know, this is just, that's kind of how it started off. Whenever we first watched the movie, I asked you some questions. Mm-hmm. So we'll start there. What was your favorite part of the movie? If you had to choose one part of the movie, where do you think, like, where would that land?
Well, when Captain America got Thor's hammer, I think that is definitely at the top. That was a really good scene. I know.
So good.
I mean, okay, the first time that I watched it, wasn't expecting that at all. But I also didn't know that you had to be worthy of it to be able to hold Thor's hammer. So I didn't get the significance of it, but I was like, oh, that's cool. And David was like, oh, this is awesome. So like, okay, it means something. So I knew that whenever I was like going into the Thor movies of Captain America, I was like, okay, I need to figure out like why that's so significant. But if I was to think of it as this was my first time watching it and I had all the context, I think I would have been like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, like even more. But since I knew it was coming, I was like, okay, I know the next scene, like he's gonna get his hammer. But
now people are gonna get mad at me in the comments
but
again.
I liked it. But see, I liked getting to watch it at first because I thought it was cool getting to like.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the process. I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
But I think that was one of the top scenes because that was cool.
Yeah, there are certain moments where I'm like, okay, I will admit it would have been better if you had seen that for the first time in the movie, like, you know, knowing the context. But you gotta understand, if you're watching this video, this was an opportunity I couldn't resist, you know? Like, she hadn't seen any of the movies, so I was like, I've got to show it to her, right?
Yeah.
But I'll say, man, like, I still have such vivid memories of being in the theater whenever all these different key moments were playing out. And really, I think most of the key moments happen with Captain America.
Yeah.
You know, like, I remember everybody gasping whenever he, like, leans in and he's like, Hail Hydra. And everybody's like, because even you, whenever we were watching it, you know, there's the elevator going down, and I said, do you know what's about to happen? And you were like, oh, they're about to get in this fight. Because you were getting it mixed up with Winter Soldier, which is what this whole scene's alluding to, right? And so you thought that, like, so you still picked up on the connection there, but really it was like a, you know, bait and switch.
Yeah.
Where he's like, Hail Hydra, and then they give it to him because they think that he's working for him. And then with the whole hammer thing, it's like,
Yeah.
And there were a few other moments in there where it was like, that was really cool. And everybody, I remember they started cheering and stuff. I don't remember them off the top of my head. But, yeah, so your favorite scene was that.
Yeah.
I also would have to say, I'm split between that moment and then also literally like 30 seconds later, or no, probably a little bit more than that, maybe like 2 minutes, 3 minutes later, whenever Captain America is by himself with his like broken shield, and he's just standing there. I'm not even talking about whenever the people start coming in through the portals, like a few seconds after that.
Yeah.
I'm talking about whenever literally Captain America is standing there by himself. It zooms out, and he's just standing on this ledge, and there's like this army of aliens. And you just think about it, and you're like, this guy has come a long way since World War II.
Yeah.
But he's still got the same fighting spirit, and I absolutely love it. There's a reason I'm wearing this Captain America hoodie right now from Super X Apparel. Go check it out. But the reason I wear this is Captain America is 100% my favorite character.
Yeah.
He's my favorite character in all of these movies, and my favorite moments come from him, and I just love that image. Like, it's in my mind when I close my eyes. When I sleep at night, this is what I see. I'm kidding. But literally, it's just like him standing there, facing off against this whole army, and he just like tightens his shield. He's like, heck yeah, and like he knows he's gonna lose, but he's like, that's just who he is. He's like, I'm gonna die fighting. I don't care. That's what I do. And most characters would not do that, but he does. And like I like how they've built the character to where that exactly lines up with him. You know, it doesn't feel like out of his way to be like, it doesn't feel out of character for him to be like, yeah, I'll do this. You're like, yep, that's my Captain America right there. And so I think that's probably my favorite moment, but right behind it is whenever he gets the hammer. But then also later on, whenever, literally these are all like back-to-back moments. Whenever all the people come out, and then the whole army of Avengers has gotten together, and you hear the music doing dun 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 dun, and it's building up. And I knew, like, I remember being in theaters, and I was like, okay, he's gonna catch the hammer, or he's gonna say Avengers assemble.
Yeah.
And then that's exactly what happened. And, like, it was just so pleasing. Like, where the music and the scene and, like, the close-ups and all the panning, it just, like, all lines up perfectly. And the lighting, it's just like, mwah. It's what I was waiting for 10 years. And I was like, so good. So I'm split between all those moments, but I think the one with him fighting against the army, that's, like, my favorite moment. Which leads to my next question. Who is your favorite superhero of all these superheroes?
Yeah. I think I'd also have to say Captain America. He's cool. Like, he's a good balance. He's, like, can be serious at times. He's super powerful. He's, like, humble, but he's strong. And he's just a little bit of everything. He's a good leader. He's a good character. He's very well-rounded. I like him. Yeah,
talk about humility. He's been able to move this hammer this entire time, and he never did.
Yeah, we talked about that.
In Age of Ultron, it budged a little bit, and Thor was like, Yeah, and a lot of people were like, maybe he's, like, partially worthy. I'm like, I don't think that's how that works.
Yeah.
You're either worthy or you aren't. I don't think it's, like, a partially worthy thing, because if that were the case, most of the people would probably be able to partially do it. But then, even Thor, whenever Captain America catches it, he's like, I knew it! And so that tells you that Captain America has known that he could wield this hammer this entire thing, ever since Age of Ultron at least.
Yeah.
He's known he could do it, but he just hasn't. And so that means he has known that he is worthy, but he just doesn't do it. He's like, no, it's not my role. Until it's finally needed, he's like, all right, give me the hammer. Boom!
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. So yeah, he's a humble guy. So, reverse question. Who is your least favorite of the characters?
Probably Captain Marvel. I think I said that from the beginning when we were first watching it. She came on screen and I was like, there's just something, I don't know, it's like something about her body language, or I think it's almost the comments she makes too. They're always like backhand comments, or it's kind of like, I guess maybe the tone she says them in. It's always kind of like she thinks she sits on this like super high pedestal, and I'm like, you need to stop. You need to humble yourself, and
it seems like she's trying to pull off what Tony Stark does.
Yeah, I could see that.
Just, like, it's something about the body language. I can't exactly put my finger on it.
Yeah.
But it's like, she's trying to be snarky, but rather than it coming across as playful, it just comes across as rude.
Yeah.
And instead of it being like just, I mean, Tony Stark, throughout all these movies, he is a pretty, like, just self-centered jerk. But how Robert Downey Jr. plays him, you're just like, he's a likable one. You know, to where when he says these things, you're like, that is the most proud thing I've ever heard in my life, but I can't help but love you.
Yeah.
Whereas with her, she's saying the same type of stuff, but when she says it, I'm like, man,
she just seems more serious about it, kind of.
Yeah.
And, like, Tony Stark is more playful about it, kind of.
Yeah.
Sometimes. Most of the time.
I don't know, but, yeah. It's like, see, you stole my answer. So look at that. We didn't talk about this ahead of time, but
we didn't.
Our favorite and least favorite characters are the same. Captain America's favorite, Captain Marvel least favorite, because I just really, honestly, every scene with her in this movie, I was like, oh.
Yeah.
And the thing that bugs me the most, and you had to hear me rant about this in the movie, it's just, so in the final fight, right? Yeah. They've got like the, what they say? It's like raining fire or something like that.
Yeah.
So the raining fire, Thanos is raining fire on all the people, you know, like, and all the beams are going down at the ground. Against this whole army of Avengers.
Yeah.
And then at one time, all the cannons just focus up into the sky.
Yeah.
And people were like, oh no, what's going on?
Yeah.
And they say they've deemed that there's a threat entering the atmosphere. So, they say that there's a threat more powerful than all the Avengers put together in the atmosphere. That is why these cannons have gone away from the army to focus on one person. That tells you how powerful this person is.
Yeah.
Captain Marvel flies in, and she just goes straight through these ships so that they crash into the ground. I'm like, first off, this person is so overpowered, it is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, that is crazy. Like, literally, there's an army, and there's one person. The cannons thought that it would be better to leave the army and focus on one person. That tells you how crazy powerful she is.
Yeah.
And she just destroys the whole ship, which in and of itself, also really crazy. But then that's immediately followed. Like, literally immediately after this. She flies down, and Peter Parker has the glove.
Yeah.
And she's like, hi, Peter Parker. You got something for me? And he hands her the glove, and she's got to get it to this van, which is just a few hundred yards away. He stands up, and he's like, I don't know how you're possibly going to get it there. I'm like, did you not just see?
Did you see him just gone to the sky?
She literally just headbutted a spaceship and it crashed into the ground. You think she's worried about these little people? I was like, she's fine. But then that's not how she responds. Like, you would think, if there was ever a moment for this, she would be like, I think I'll be fine. But instead, this is the moment where they kind of shoehorn this thing in, where they're like, she won't be alone. And all, like, the female Avengers, like, come in there, and it's just like, ugh. They had a moment like that in Infinity War, and it was done a lot better. Like, to where it felt more natural. It was just almost like all the women happened to end up in the same spot, and they were fighting. I was like, okay, that's cool. But in this part, literally, it's like the fighting just stops for a moment.
Very forced.
So that they can all get into the shot. And you can actually see, I was watching it this time, Spider-Man, like, kind of just, like, dives back onto the ground. Like, he's just like, oh, I need to act injured again. Because, you know, if not, then it'd be, like, all these women plus Spider-Man. So he just, like, gets back on the ground and, like, acts like he's injured. And it's like, I was like, this girl, she literally just flew through a spaceship.
Yeah.
She headbutted a spaceship.
And crashed it,
multiple times. These cannons thought that she was so powerful that they directed their beams at her. And you're worried about her getting this glove to this van. And then sure enough, she isn't able to do it, even with all that help. I'm like...
Doesn't connect.
I was just so confused. I was like, this is not consistent.
Yeah.
This woman. But she is very overpowered. I will still say that.
Yeah.
Because then even later, Thanos and her, like, fighting, and then she, like, Thanos headbutts her, and she just, like, and?
Yeah.
I was like, this person is so powerful. Like,
you would think if she was that powerful, she would have played a more leading role in this entire movie. Like, she was at the beginning, nowhere to be found at the end. It was just kind of, like,
and
weird.
I will say that they do justify that a little bit, because they do have one line, I actually missed it watching it this time, but I know it's in there, where they say, like, hey, we need you around here. Like, why are you going around to all these other places? And she says, not every world has you guys. Right? So she says, not all worlds have Avengers. So she's like, I've got to focus on everybody else. And I was like, okay, fair enough. You know, the Avengers, they've got this world covered. She gets to cover all the rest of them. I was like, that's a fair justification. So I could see how they did that to excuse it. But if she had been there, the problem would have been solved like, immediately. But if we're wanting to talk about the reverse of that, if we want to talk about how the problem could have never been resolved, I just want to give Thanos some advice. Maybe, Thanos, if you're listening to this, I know that you got dusted away at the end of the movie, but if you ever, you know, if somehow you came across this video, I just want to say, be a little more selective in who you dust away next time.
Oh.
If you dusted away Ant-Man, you would not have any problems whatsoever right now.
Yeah. You'd probably
still
be in power.
Yeah. If you had just chosen, if you just had in your, if you were just a little more selective, if maybe before you dusted away things, you just looked, you know, I don't know. Like, I don't know how you would decide that.
Yeah.
But maybe just think about it a little bit and think, how could this be reversed on me? Because Ant-Man, you've talked about this in past movies.
I was about to say, I just want to say that I've mentioned from the beginning that Ant-Man is literally probably one of the most powerful superheroes out of all of them, just because of his abilities alone.
Yeah. And really, just his ability with the power over ants is enough.
Yeah.
But it's like the quantum realm thing. That is the thing that this whole time travel thing hinges upon. When Ant-Man comes out of that, he all of a sudden has the solution that it's literally the domino effect that gets all this stuff started. But Thanos, maybe you're saying, I didn't know about Ant-Man. That's fine. I was like, okay, you killed half of all life forms, right? That means you also killed half of all animals, I'm presuming. You don't really see people talk about that.
Yeah.
Also, I guess that would mean you killed half of all plants, too.
Yeah.
Which to me is confusing, because I thought the whole point was that you were trying to, you know, help preserve the world's resources, but plants and... I don't know. I don't know how Thanos did this, but if you killed all animals as well, maybe make sure that you killed that rat that stepped on the machine that helped Ant-Man out. Yeah. If you had literally, you know, there's two people there. If you had just... No, not people. There's one person and one rat. If you had killed one of those, your problem, your situation would have still kept going on. You know? I mean, nobody would have fixed it. They would have been hopeless, and there would have been no solution.
Because there was only one solution.
There was only one.
Yeah, and it was the rat stepping on the button.
Yeah. Literally, that's ridiculous. You know, I'm sorry. I really like this movie, and I really like Infinity War, but I do just got to call it out. That Doctor Strange thing from Infinity War, it still bothers me. I know that they had to do it. I know that they had to do it because it would take away the stakes if he's like, how many possibilities are there that we win? And he's like, half. 17! It's like, half of them! It's like, okay, that would take away the stakes. But there being like one solution, I'm like, do you know how many things would have had to have gone... Like there's so many ways this could have gone differently.
Yeah.
Right? So let's just say that the ant, or that Ant-Man was dusted. Okay, well, all of a sudden, now that's another way you couldn't have won. Mm-hmm. But maybe, I don't know, there's plenty of ways. What if the rat hadn't done these things like...
If you would have kept, like, possibilities like 5 and under, the stakes pretty much still would have been there. If you would have hit 5 or under.
When we're talking about infinite possibilities, literally, I don't know.
If they wanted to go for...
The statistics don't change much. Yeah. But it's just crazy, because if Ant-Man had been dusted, they wouldn't have won. If the rat hadn't done anything, they wouldn't have won. So literally their whole possibility, it was relying on the fact that Ant-Man and the rat, neither of them were dusted.
And we're in the right place, the right time.
Yes. Which means that there was only one possibility wherein those would happen. Which, to be fair, that is largely on coincidence, and so I could see how that is only going to happen in one situation. But why do any of your choices matter at that point?
Yeah.
It's just based on coincidence.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Thanos, just be a little bit more focused whenever you're trying to decide how to do this whole world domination thing. I mean, you're not trying to... That's another thing. I want to talk about Thanos real quick. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm all over the place in this video. Get used to it. In this one, in Infinity War, Thanos had a little bit more... He was less villainous. You know, he came across and he was like, yes, I'm just trying to, like, help out the universe or something. Yeah. It wasn't a good justification. He was still terrible. He was like, I'm going to kill half the population so that the other half of the population won't die off. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But at least he tried to justify it, and he wasn't like, oh, I'm a bad guy. He thought he was a good guy. This Thanos, to be fair, this is like a 5 years earlier Thanos, or 9 years earlier Thanos, who has now traveled to the future, so... I guess he's maybe 9 years less mature. This Thanos is just like a mustache-twirling villain. He's like, you know, in all the worlds I've conquered, I can't say that it gave me much pleasure, but this, I'm going to enjoy this. Yeah. And he's just like taunting them. I'm like, wow, you're like an actual bad guy now. You're aware you're a bad guy, and you're just
bad to be bad.
Yeah, so it was kind of funny how you see the differences between the characters at the beginning and end. What else to talk about? Iron Man. Let's talk about Iron Man. Mm-hmm. What do you think about Iron Man in this movie?
Yeah, Iron Man's never really been one of my favorite characters. I think specifically...
How dare you?
I know a lot of people like Iron Man, so I'm very cautious when I say that, but it's true. He's really not my favorite. I think he gets on my nerves because he's hypocritical, and that's because he has started so many issues, which we've talked about in like other videos. All of his contraptions and his little suits that he makes so many issues. But then they try to come to Iron Man. They're like, hey, we need your help to try and get half the population back, right? And he's like, no, I don't really feel like, you know, putting my life at stake or anything. And I'm like, do you know how many times these people have helped you?
Stake for you?
Yeah, countless times. And there's this one time whenever half the population, which, granted, you know, he has a kid. And he seems like a really good father in this movie. I mentioned that. I do give him that. He seems like a really good dad. And he has a wife and, like, he has a life. So I can see where he's coming from. Mm-hmm. But at the same time... If you were Iron Man and you have, like, put this much distress on a society and all of these Avengers that are your friends and they've helped you numerous times and then you're just going to be like, no, I don't feel like it, and just kind of, like, give the cold shoulder and turn away, I was like, that's kind of crazy.
It's the most unheroic thing you could probably do. It's like, hey, you have the opportunity to bring back half the light, like, half of all life in the entire universe. He's like, nah. No, I'm fine. Yeah. It's like, whoa.
There wasn't even any contemplation. It was like, immediate answer was no. There was no, like, wrestle between the two type of... No, it was just immediately like, no, I don't feel like it. And I was like, really? Really?
Yeah, you know, the more movies and TV shows we watch, I think I'm realizing that a lot of characters, their issues is that they just don't communicate or think very much.
Yeah.
Because literally, I mean, that happens in Cobra Kai, that happens in Smallville, that happens in all these shows we've been watching. Mm-hmm. Whenever people just take some time to think, they end up making the right choice. You know, because literally, he's like, later on, he's washing his dishes, and he's like, he sees like a picture of Spider-Man. He's like, oh yeah, like really, even then it's still kind of selfish. Because he's like, oh yeah, there's that other kind of son-like figure that died. I guess it would be nice to have him back. Mm-hmm. And so rather than thinking about the entire universe, he's thinking about Peter Parker. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I guess I'll go invent time travel. And then he just goes and does it in like 5 seconds. You're like, it was that easy?
That's another thing to talk about.
Yeah. Can you imagine if, like, you're married and then, like, your spouse just walks in and is like, hey, by the way, I invented time travel today. And at first, you might be like, yeah, nice. But then you realize, oh, this is the person who invented the Iron Man suit, who was the leader of the Avengers, who created artificial intelligence that almost destroyed the world. He's probably telling the truth. Did you really invent time travel? That's just like a mind-blowing thing. But I will say, to go like with what you're saying and everything, the more I watch Endgame, the more sympathetic I get towards Iron Man. Just because I know where the story's heading. And so I'm like analyzing the character more. But so like whenever we watched it this time, I was trying to at least like not be too harsh on him. But there's some places where I'm just like, man, I think they had a really good opportunity to do something really cool with him.
Yeah.
Like, and ultimately his final sacrifice at the end is really cool.
Yeah.
Like it means a lot, and I love the closure of like, I am Iron Man. And I also, sorry, I'll get back to Iron Man in a second. I like how Thanos has literally been rehearsing his one line for 9 years. The I am inevitable thing. Because literally at the beginning of the movie, whenever they go and they kill the original Thanos from Infinity War, you know, they go into his thing and he looks them in the eyes. He says, I am inevitable. And then they like kill him. Right? Well, now, at the end of the movie, you've got another Thanos who is from 9 years in the past. And he says the exact same thing whenever he's about to kill everybody. He says, I am inevitable. And I was like, how often do you say that? Yeah. Like, do you just really enjoy saying that line? Like, I feel like he probably said that one time, and he was like, he thought it sounded a lot cooler than it really did. He was like,
that has a ring to it.
Yeah, he's like, I am inevitable. Yeah, that's a good line. That's a really good line. But then, of course, Iron Man comes in. I am Iron Man, and you're like, yeah, because that's how the first Iron Man movie ended. I was like, oh, that's nice little closure there. Should have seen it coming. But the one thing, my one biggest gripe about Iron Man, and this has been my biggest gripe since the first time I saw this.
Yeah.
Is the one line whenever he finally, he comes to mend things with Cap, and he's like, okay, I'm going to do this time travel thing with you. And he says, we need to gain what we lost, but I don't want to lose what I found. That line right there took away all the stakes in the movie for me. Because right there, he's wanting to be heroic.
Yeah.
But at the same time, what he's doing is he's actually being a selfish jerk once again.
Yeah.
I thought it was really compelling how they'd set everything up at the beginning. Because I was thinking he was going to have a choice to make. Either he could keep the family that he'd built for 5 years, or he could return things back to normal. And so I thought, whenever I first saw the movie for the first time, I thought that they were going to go back in time, get the stones, and revert everything back to 5 years earlier. Yeah. So I thought he was going to have to give up his family in order to do this. In which case, if you think about it, he could have just restarted the family again. I know that that's not the same. Like that's kind of weird, and it's easier to say that in theory. Right. But I thought that he was going to have to make that choice. He was going to have to say, I have to give up my family for the sake of the universe, or I have to give up the universe for the sake of my family. And I was like, that is some good closure to this character. Yeah. He's having to go from this person who's so self-centered and self-focused to this person who's willing to give up the thing that he wanted most. Right. For everybody. I was like, that is cool. And I was excited to see that decision. And then he comes to Cap. He's like, okay, we need to regain the things we lost, but I don't want to lose the things I found. I'm like, that takes away all of it. So he's like, yes, we need to gain those things, but I'm not willing to give up what I've got. And I was like, so you're not willing to give up anything. Yeah. You just want this perfect world scenario. But what that does is that creates this whole realm of really terrifying things. We just finished watching WandaVision episode 4, and literally the opening scene of that episode is absolutely terrifying. Because the opening scene involves all these people coming back after the blip, right? After the snap. People are coming back, and they're just showing up in in the hospital 5 years afterwards. Yeah. And when you think about it, what they did was not super amazing. It would have been fine if they really did snap and everything went back to how it was 5 years earlier. But instead, what they did, just a hypothetical scenario here, there is a woman whose husband disappeared during the snap in Infinity War, and 5 years have passed. Since then, she has moved on. She has started dating again. She has married some other guy. Now, her husband has shown back up. She is remarried, and now her husband's back. What do you do there? Good job, Iron Man. Because you wanted to keep your family, now you have wrecked all these other families.
Yeah.
And I can guarantee you that's not a singular situation. There's a lot of stuff like that probably happened. There's a show called Manifest, I think it is. Mm-hmm. And it's like literally the same premise. I'm pretty sure it's like these people get in a plane, and whenever the plane actually touches back down, it's been 5 years. And people are like, what's going on? And all these situations have changed. Well, that's exactly what would happen in this like worldwide catastrophe.
Yeah.
So I hated that they did that with him. I was like, oh, like I liked the stakes that they had. Mm-hmm. And then they just took it away, and I was like, okay, so you're not really being totally selfless.
Yeah.
He is selfless whenever he like dies. He sacrificed himself at the end.
Then he does give up everything.
Yes, he does. Like he didn't have to.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. There's just so much I'm like, ugh. Because think about it. If Hulk had snapped his fingers so that everything was how it was 5 years earlier, Thanos and them would not have been there. Mm-hmm. Right? They wouldn't have.
Right.
Because they would no longer be... Yeah, like that wouldn't be the case. Mm-hmm. So there would have been... That war wouldn't have been there or anything.
Yep.
So literally, that one decision changes everything. And I think he even repeats that to Hulk right before Hulk snaps. He says, remember, we want to do this. We want to gain the things we lost, but not lose the things we gained. It's like, no. Yeah. Like, literally, if they just made that one decision, there wouldn't have been that final war. Iron Man probably wouldn't have died. None of that stuff.
Yeah.
So he ended up losing everything, but not even by choice. It was just like, in the final moment. So going back to Doctor Strange, because at this moment, Doctor Strange, right before Iron Man snaps his fingers and stuff, Doctor Strange holds his finger out. He's like, this is the one chance. I'm like, really? What if they'd done the other thing? What if they just reverted it back? Would that not have worked? I feel like it would have worked. But,
yeah.
I don't know. That's just me. Yeah. But other than that, I really did like Iron Man. That frustrated me because I thought it was really cool what they were doing with his character there. Yeah. And then they took it away. And I remember even in the theater being like, oh, that's a cheap move. That's like a cheap out. And it's really not that thoughtful. So
yeah, if the stakes would have been there, his character would have been completely redeemed. In my eyes, at least.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, that would have been really cool.
Because, like, I like Robert Downey Jr. And I think he plays a good Iron Man. The only thing I think is, like, the characteristics of Iron Man, they get on my nerves, necessarily. But, like, the actor itself is good. And the character is good sometimes because he has, like, some good, like, comedic relief every once in a while. And he adds to the Avengers. Like, I don't wish he wasn't there. Like,
oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's a good character, like, within it. And it works. It's just sometimes the choices that he makes, I'm like, I know you could be smarter than that.
Even whenever Iron Man's a total jerk, he's still one of the most likable people ever.
Yeah, it's weird. It's really weird.
Which explains why Captain Marvel's just unlikable, because she's trying to do that, but she can't pull it off.
Yeah.
I think there's something about just Robert Downey Jr. is just a very charismatic person. Yeah, where you're watching him, you're like, yeah, this guy's cool.
Yeah, he plays it really well. Yeah. Really well.
But this is turning into a very long video. So real quick, before we wrap up, I just got one more thing to ask you. Oh, I just knocked over everything. Oh, that was weird. One more thing to ask. Mm-hmm. How did you like the closure for Captain America's story at the end of the movie?
From him, grabbing the hammer and stuff like that?
No. So at the very end, he gets sent back in time to deliver the Infinity Stones, but then he doesn't come back. He ends up just living this life with Peggy, and he turns into an old man and stuff.
Yeah. It's kind of different. I mean, to be honest, I didn't really understand why they chose that, or, why he didn't just come back. I didn't really see the significance of it.
Yeah, the main thing was so that he got to live his happy life with Peggy, which is the thing he's always wanted. Yeah. Right?
Which, I mean, granted, I feel like if anyone deserved that, it should be Captain America, because, he's the glue to the Avengers, I feel like. He's held it all together. He's, the leader. I feel like if anyone deserved that, Captain America should get to go and, live his dream life. Because he's laid down his life for everyone else. I mean, like you said, that one scene where all the aliens are on one side, and it's just, Captain America, and he's, fully ready to just, go out and, die and fight for his life against the whole universe, knowing, well... Got hundreds of people in front of me, but here I go. I'm gonna try.
He's anyone, man, if I get through this, I'm retiring.
If anyone deserves to have their dream life, it would be him, because he's the most humble character there is.
That's true. It's one of those things I'm conflicted on it, because really, I can't get behind it just because to me it violates his character.
Yeah, I would.
But I would agree with what you're saying in the fact of of anybody who deserves it, it's him, because literally he's the consistent guy who literally I just agree with almost every decision that Captain America makes.
Yeah, he's smart.
You actually got on to me about it in this movie, because every time Captain America did something, I was like, yeah, Captain America, and she's like, are you ever gonna not say that when he does something? Yeah. And literally it was if he showed up on screen, I was like, yeah, my boy Chris Evans, let's go.
Yeah.
And she got on to me about it, and I was like, just wait till the end of the movie, because literally I think that's why it frustrates me. He's my favorite character. and he's the one I get most excited about. I'm most invested in his story. His trilogy is my favorite of all the Marvel movies. And so the final thing, I'm just like, it frustrates me so much because he goes back in time and he delivers all these stones and then he doesn't come back. And I do agree. He deserves that happy life. That's really cool. But I don't think his character is the type of character that would choose what he deserved.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
He is a soldier who feels this, duty to serve and protect people. He literally just left his fellow soldiers saying, I'll be back in a few seconds for you. And then he just ditched them. And now he comes back as an old man where he's no good to any of them. And he's like, oh, by the way, yeah, I lived a happy life. Have fun saving the world on your own. Does he deserve that life? Yeah, absolutely. Would he have chosen that? I don't think so. Yeah. And I know what they were trying to do there is, I've actually seen people try to explain it like this. Iron Man's story it's from being a selfish person to making a selfless choice in the end. And then, I've heard people say this, I don't think this is what they intended, but Captain America starts out selfless to where he learns how to finally make a selfish choice in the end. That does not sound like a very good character arc to me. Yeah. Because I don't think it's ever a good character arc for somebody to go from selfless to selfish. Yeah, not and also, the appealing thing to me about Captain America is that through all of the movies, he has always been the person who did not change. Like, the consistent thing. With all these other characters, their stories and their characters have changed over the movies because their stories have shaped who they are. Right. Captain America, his whole story arc is not changing despite the fact that the world around you is changing. Right. So all of his movies, all the Avengers movies, his whole thing is that the world around me is changing. I need to stand firm and stay who I am. So it bothered me how literally they closed the story with him finally choosing to not do that. And he's like, you know what? Never mind. I'm going to abandon my post and I'm just going to go have this happy life. Yeah. I get that he deserves it. If anything, I would have been, if I were him, I'd be like, hey, Peggy, want to come to the future with me? And if she says no, he's like, I understand. I just wanted to give you that opportunity. I've got to go, and I'm going to keep serving. So I think that would have been cool. He's like, okay, let's go talk to our boy Hank Pym, and let's go get some Pym particles, and we'll travel back to the future. Back to the future. But that would have made sense to me. He's like, okay, let's do that. But he doesn't do that. Yeah. He just abandons everybody. And I'm like, oh, that just frustrates me. And it's literally the closing part of, the whole movie. And I'm like, oh, he's my favorite character. Don't do that. But at the same time, it does get me in the feels because he finally got the girl in the end and he finally got that last dance. I'm like, okay. Yeah. Okay. You still got me. I don't agree with what you're doing, but you got me. And so, yeah.
Especially because the Avengers at that point were 2 people down because what's her name died for one of the Infinity Stones.
Gamora.
Yes. She
and
died.
And then Vision also died.
And then Iron Man died at the end.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So 3 people down.
Yeah.
Yikes. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and literally Captain America kind of at that point is the leader.
Oh, yeah, he most certainly is.
I mean, whenever they all gathered, who was the one saying Avengers Assemble? It was Captain America. Yeah. He was the one leading the charge. He was the one standing alone against an army. He is the leader of the Avengers at this point, and he's like, all right, peace out, I'm gone. It's like, dude, no. Yeah. Can't do that. But closing thoughts. I just wanted to mention, like I said, we've been watching WandaVision, and episode 4 just released, and so we just watched that before we watched Endgame. And I've got to say, watching this movie, having just seen WandaVision, especially episode 4, it makes Wanda a lot scarier. I'm just gonna say that. Everything I'm watching with her, I'm like, this girl's about to break. Yeah, this girl's about to go
crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. But other than that, as we close, I just want to ask you. I mean, obviously, we're still gonna just to clarify. We're still gonna watch Spider-Man: Far From Home. We're gonna get there. Yeah. I've already shown her all the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, and so what we're gonna do, we've already recorded our videos on that. And after I post this one, we're gonna post those videos, and then after this, I'm actually gonna show her the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies. And so we're going to watch those, make videos, post those, and then after that will come our Spider-Man Far From Home one. So I'm letting her see all of the Spider-Man movies before she sees Spider-Man Far From Home, and so that's what we're doing. We're kind of taking a little break from these. But before we get to Spider-Man Far From Home, what have you thought of the Infinity Saga? Yeah. Overall thoughts?
There's a lot of movies. Took a lot of time, but I really enjoyed it. It was cool. I hadn't watched any superhero movies before this, so I didn't really know what to expect going in. It surprised me. There's a lot of new things that I learned. I see why people like it so much. I feel like I'm now part of the Marvel fandom a little bit. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I liked
Nice.
it. Yeah.
So you want to watch them again?
Maybe not yet.
Maybe not yet.
Maybe give it a little bit of time.
Here's the time. Yeah, well, I have really enjoyed watching these with you. I think it's been fun. I do want to say she did not fall asleep at all in this movie. So
I didn't.
That was good. It was a 3-hour movie, and she made it all the way through, and I was so proud of you. There was one point I looked at you, and I think her eyes were drifting. But she woke. That was like early on though. That was like 45 minutes in. I was like, and she like woke up. She was good the whole way through. Can't say the same for all of the movies.
Yeah.
But we made it through all of them. The only ones we didn't go through were Incredible Hulk and Thor: The Dark World.
Yeah.
So
we'll probably go back and watch Incredible Hulk though. Because now we have it. I think it's on Vudu or something.
Yes. Yeah. We're not gonna watch Thor: The Dark World though, probably, because I just don't care for that movie at all, and there's no need. The only thing you need to know from it was replayed in this movie. Mm-hmm. But we'll eventually watch Incredible Hulk because that's actually an alright movie, and I actually really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But other than that, you have officially made it. The only one we've got left is Spider-Man: Far From Home.
Yeah.
Which really it still fits into this phase of the Marvel movies because it's actually kind of a closure. It's almost like a bookend, almost like a conclusion, epilogue, right, to this whole thing. And so we will get to that. Mm-hmm. But other than that, thank you for enduring through this with me for the last 8 months.
Yeah.
And thank y'all for anybody who has watched these. And if you have watched this whole video, I know it's way longer than any of the other ones we've done. But I think there's a lot to talk about. So thank you for watching this if you made it to the end. And if you haven't seen the others, please go watch them. Yeah. There's going to be at the end here, I'm going to put like a playlist thing right here, and then there'll probably be some other video recommended over here, and you should go check that out too. I don't know what video it's going to be, but you should click on it. And while you're doing that, you should probably like this video, and you should subscribe to the channel, and maybe turn on the notification bell, so that you can see whenever we come out with more videos.
Yeah.
Whether it be about Smallville, or other superhero shows or TV shows, Cobra Kai, any of that stuff.
All the things.
If you just want to see Brienne and I pointed at myself when I said Brienne, and I pointed at you. If you want to see Brienne and I, or some of my other friends talk about stuff, stick around.
Yeah.
But other than that, do you have anything else to say? Any closing thoughts about these Marvel movies?
I feel kind of sad to leave it. Like, as we're sitting here and we're, like, closing out the video, I'm like, I feel like it's like a baby that I've nurtured for, like, almost 8 months now, and I'm like, okay, go off, you get to, like, live on your own. I feel like I just raised a child, and now I'm, like, sending them off to college or something like that, and they're gonna have to go live on their own. And I'm like, but, like, a piece of my heart's kind of, like, breaking off. Like, I can always go back and rewatch them, but I will never get to, like, watch it for the first time ever again. Like, we've just completed. Mm-hmm. This was 8 months of our life that we just, like, dedicated to binging the Marvel movies. Like, that's crazy. Wow.
Don't worry. We still got another baby prepared for you. Not a literal baby. Don't worry. Because after these Marvel movies, do you know what we're watching next?
What? Star Wars.
Star Wars.
We are watching Star Wars.
So after we finish Spider-Man: Far From Home, our next phase in movie watching will be Star Wars.
Yeah.
Because she hasn't seen those. Nope. You've seen, I think, like one of them or something like that.
Yeah.
It's been so delightful for me. She has seen, like, no movies. I don't know how she made it her whole life not seeing these movies, but she has done it.
And then Harry Potter will come eventually,
yes,
too.
Harry Potter eventually. I'm actually really excited to show you those.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we got Star Wars, we got Harry Potter, and who knows what after that. But I'm just going to show you all these movies, and we're just going to do videos so that we can just have it recorded of how you reacted to this stuff.
Yeah.
But that being said, there are Marvel movies. There's Endgame. We'll be back for Spider-Man: Far From Home at some point in the near future. With that being said, I'm David.
And I'm Brienne.
And this has been Now Let's Be Honest About Movies. Bye.